So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the AWP session. So actually, CNS session has been converted to AWP subject today, just for today, and we'll be having two lectures, one at 7:45 and second one will be at 9:50. Well, let's go through this, and probably we'll be completing this entire unit as well as this topic today. We'll try, so let us see. Now, this is what we have created till now. We have started with a very basic HTML, CSS look and feel page creation. Then we have introduced AngularJS in that, and we have loaded all these person details from the JSON data using HTTP request. So HTTP service in the AngularJS. Then we display those details. Once we display it in a card view, then we go for the table view, and then we work upon the adding a new person detail. Once we were done with that, we worked on the routing part, and this is what the result we achieved in previous lecture. So we have three different views right now. This is the card view for our home page, let's say. Another one is the table view we have created. And next one is the adding a new person details, right? Now, yesterday I told you about this hash exclamation mark sign. That's because I haven't written HTML5 mode properly. It's not enable. It should be enabled. Okay, it should be enabled true. And when I save this one, then it will be removed. So HTML5 mode we need to enable. Then that hash and exclamation sign will be removed. But going for that, it requires server-side URL rewriting enabled. That's what I talked about in previous session. So because of that reason, right now all the pages are working properly. That's fine. Okay, but when I refresh this page, it won't work, right? Because server doesn't know that on this domain there is anything like add contact. Okay, because add contact.html file is within view folder, not on the root, and that's why server doesn't know that. And to make that work at server side, we need to enable URL rewriting. Okay, that's what the point. Now, if we want to work, let's say if we want this refresh to work properly, then we need to have that hash and exclamation sign. So if I remove this thing, okay, HTML5 mode, if I do not enable that part, and then if I load my page, then everything will work properly with hash exclamation sign. And now if I refresh this page, it will still work, because now what server is finding is on this domain, it is finding hash means the root index file, and with index, because within index we have AngularJS. AngularJS is finding add contact page and displaying here, right? So now F5 refreshing is working because of that hash exclamation mark. So that's what the reason we have those signs here. So let's keep this as it is right now, and once we are done with everything, later at the end point we will introduce HTML5 URL rewriting. Okay, so let's go through these this example. So we do have 15 persons already listed here, and this data is coming from the internet, or actually internet, but right now it is in a JSON file, and using HTTP we request we fetch those 15 person data. So this is a card view, and on the table we also have 15 person data. And when we go for adding a new person, right now this is disabled. We cannot submit this thing, we cannot save this thing. Okay, now if I want to discard, then it's very simple. On discard, let's say we redirect our user to the home page. Then if you want to do that thing, let's go to add conflict HTML, and just below wherever we have a discard button, right? Instead of button, let us change it to anchor tag, and then inside anchor, let's have href equals to and simple root, nothing else. Okay. So what happens is when we click on discard, it is going to redirect us to the root, and if it is redirecting us to the root, then I'll be redirected back to the home page. So that's fine. Discard is simple. I don't want to have anything there. Now, actual discard will be something different, because when we discard, if we have entered anything inside this one, then it might be binded with the person data. Okay, and then if we discard it, we need to clear that part. So that I leave it up to you. When you click on discard, go for one controller, and inside discard function, you clear everything that you have already written here, and then you redirect your user to the root. So that should happen. Okay. Now let's see. Let's continue with this add person details. Now when we add something here, okay, when I add anything, then it allows me to submit this form, right? When we have every required field written properly, it will allow me to save this form. And when we save it, what it does is it has entered that new person, right? But it does not redirect me to the home page. So let us work on this part now. So when we go to the controller that we have created for adding a new person, in that, this is what the initialization person object, initializing object. Then at starting point, we have a new person initialized with blank object. And then this new person is binded with that form. So all the data that user has entered is coming at this place. Let me remove this thing also, note. Now we haven't covered this note in add new person form. You can cover that thing. You can have a text area there. Yeah, so a new person. And then when we save it, we are going to call this function, add person function. Now inside that, what we do is we fetch the length of our array, and +1 we assign to the person ID, and then we push that person inside that list. And once we are done with that, we reinitialize this new person, okay, with the blank object again. So everything becomes empty. Now that's what we do. Now one problem, once we are done with this thing, we need to redirect our user back to root. Now to do that thing, what we can do is we can use location service in Angular. Okay, so if we want to use location service, then first of all, let's define its dependency at this place, $location. So we are using location service, just like HTTP service. We have seen this location service also. And once we have that location service available, just to confirm, am I still online? Just someone please reply. Actually, I'm having this session from hotspot, and I cannot ignore few calls. Yep. Okay, thank you. So let's continue. So we were working on this location service. Now, once we have a location service, what we can do is we can redirect our user using this location service path method, location.path. And here you need to give a path wherever you want to redirect your user. So I want to redirect my user to root. That's it. Okay. So this is how we can redirect our user once we are done with some process. So that's one thing. Another thing, I want to focus on this. Now, earlier we have used this length plus 1. So length, what it gives us is, it is giving us number of persons available right now. 15, then length will be 15. Plus 1 is 16. And my new person ID will become 16. That's what we are doing right now. Now, ID is not actually the index. Index and ID, these two things are different. Okay, if I delete few persons from the starting of my list, okay, then 1, 2, and 3 ID persons are deleted. Now still my largest ID will be 15, but length will decrease. Length of my array will decrease. It will become 12. Now this length will give me 12 plus 1, I'll calculate, becomes 13, and I'm setting that 13 as an ID of my new person. But that 13 ID person is already there, right? So we have that problem here. And to work upon this problem, what we can do is, instead of finding a length and making it plus 1, we need to find the maximum ID that is already there. Whatever is maximum ID, whether it is 5, it is 8, it is 15, whatever it is there, we need to fetch that maximum ID, and then we need to make it plus 1 here. Now, because we are working at local place right now, otherwise this ID will be coming from the database. Once we insert a new record in database, then data from database we can access new ID, and then we can assign that ID here. So in your database, generally what we do is we keep this ID as a primary key, and if it is auto incremented, then we need not to handle that thing here. But right now, what we will do, what we need to do is, we need to fetch the maximum ID from our list, root scope persons. Yeah. So once we have that maximum ID, okay, at this place, instead of length, we will be finding maximum ID from persons, and then we'll make plus 1. So instead of finding length, what I want is, I want to have a person ID. Okay. Now this persons is the entire array of objects, right? Then what we'll do is, we'll create a map from that. Now this is a JavaScript function, so nothing new in Angular. You need to work upon JavaScript to understand this thing. So we'll create a map from these persons object array. Now, how are we gonna create map? So to create that map, we have a function. We need to have a function, okay, which will return something, okay. Now this function will have a single person, okay, from this entire array. From this entire array, map is going to provide us a single person, one by one element. And whatever we return from this function is going to be the part of map that we are creating. So what we want is, we want to have person ID. Okay. We want to have a person ID. So I'm fetching all person IDs one by one, and I'm creating a map. Okay. So that's what I do here at this place. I create a map. Now, once I have a map, then on this, I'm going to apply math function, and I'm going to find out whatever is maximum ID. So to apply that, we will go for math.max.apply. Okay, this is what the function we need to use. Now, first parameter will be the math library, and second parameter will be this entire map that we have created. So that will be our second parameter. And this is how I can fetch the maximum ID from my entire list. Now, once I have that maximum ID, I'll have +1 there. Okay, we can have +1, and that will be assigned to our new person ID. So this is what I'm doing at this place right now. Using math, I'm finding the maximum ID, but ID is not available directly to me. It is there in the object array. So from that object array, I create a map for all the IDs of persons. And then I add 1 there. So we have made 2 changes at this place. We have created a new ID, and then we have redirected our user to home. Let's save and let us check how it works. Yeah, so our app is working till now. If I go there, we don't have a 16th person here. Okay, now let's go and add a new person at this. We don't have any length limitation or validation on font, so it'll work. Okay, and now when we save, it will redirect us to home because of location service, and we have this person added here, right? We have this person. Now this person is having ID 16 because maximum ID is 15. How do we check it? Well, to check it, we need to go for some extra coding here, and we'll do with the details, person details coding, right? So that's the thing. Now let's work on the finding details. If I click on any person, then actually I want to load a new view, detailed view here, where I can have all the details of particular person, right? Now if I click on the name of a person here, so this title, on this title I have a link, need to manage that link and need to create a view, detailed view, and for that we also need to create a controller. Now in a tabular view, we have this button here. So if I click on this button, I want to fetch that person view, that person's detail, right? So that's what we want. Let's go and work on a code now. We already have a detailed view because we have already created HTML part for this. So we do have this view available with us. We need to load this view first, and for that we need to have a new route. So first of all, I'm going to create a new route here, and this will be, let's say, contact detail. Contact detail. And at this place, we are going to use detail view. Okay, details.html is the file. So details.html, and we'll create detail controller. Okay, details controller. We need to create that controller also. So let's go and create this controller in our controller file. So controller, and as you all know, controller has a syntax. First one will be the controller name, second one will be the function. Okay, and it requires its own scope. And inside this controller, we can do anything we want. And what will be the controller name? So details controller is what we have decided as a controller name. And let's save this. So we have created controller. We haven't written any of the code yet right now. We'll be working on that code just after a few minutes. But let's load this details view first. Okay, so on home page where we have created this card and a person title, we have anchor, right? We have this anchor, and at this place I need to redirect my user to the details view. Now, how do we redirect? If you don't remember, then let me tell you, this is how we manage our routes. Okay, we need to prefix this thing because we haven't used HTML5 URL rewriting right now, and this is the URL that we create. So similarly, on this home and the card title, at this place anchor tag, I'm going to redirect my user to contact detail. Okay, so if I click on this title, person name, then I'll be redirected to contact detail page, and contact detail is this one. Right now there is dummy data. That's okay. We will load that data for a particular person later. So let's see whether this works properly. So on a home page, if I click on name of any person, it should redirect me to the details page. So we are on a details page. Next thing that we want to work on is to fetch that person detail. Right now, this is a dummy detail. Okay, anywhere I go, I'll have the same detail. But now what I need to do is I'll load this detail for a particular person. Now, if I want to load this for a particular person, then I need to have that person ID. And from one page to another page, from one view to another view, we need to pass that ID as a parameter, right? So now next thing is we need to work upon the person ID. So let me go to code. So from this home page, when I click on this link, okay, when I click on this link, along with this URL, I also need to pass the person ID. Okay, so I'm going to have that person ID here. Just like we access all the data of person title, person first name, last name, email, phone one. Similarly, I'll have this person ID in my URL. So if this is a first person, then URL will be something like contact details /1. If this is a second person, then it will be contact details /2, then /3, /4, /5, /6, and so on. Now, when we use this one, contact detail is my route, then slash, and whatever I append here, this will be the parameter to my route. Okay. Now, this is called a parameterized routing. So we also need to define this parameter in a route that we have already defined in this config part. Now, how do we do that? So for that, we also need to have colon and then need to define a parameter name, just colon and ID. Okay. Sorry, not only colon, slash and then ID. Okay, so that defines our parameterized routing part. So route is contact detail, and with that I have one parameter. Now when I have this parameter, okay, then I need to access this parameter from the URL address inside my controller. Remember, what we do, what we need is we need to have this parameter which is coming from the URL, and we want to access it in our controller. So within our controller, if we want to access that parameter, then another thing we need to define here as a dependency, which will be route params. Route params. Now using route params, we can access Okay, we can access that thing. So route params dot, and then whatever name you have used in this config part, ID, then you can use that ID here, dot ID. This gives you that parameter. Now, if you want to have multiple parameters, then you can have those multiple parameters also. So it gives you the parameter value from the URL. Now, this value coming from URL is just a text, and we want it to work like integer. So let us parse it. Parse to integer value. Okay. Parse int. And once I parse that value, then I have that value as a person ID. So let's have a local variable person ID. A local variable I've used here and saved that person ID, which is coming from the URL, and saved it in this variable name. Now, once I have that ID, then I need to find this person from my entire object array. Now, object array is inside our root scope. So let us have that root scope also. Okay. So that from this root scope, from that root scope where we have all the persons, we can find a single person, whoever is having this person ID. Again, this find is a JavaScript function which requires one function, whatever function you call it. Let's call it find person, and we also need to create that function so that it can work. Or you can have a nesting here. Okay, person. We want to find a person from this entire persons array. Find will give us a single person. Okay, so this find method is going to give us one by one all the persons from this list. And once we have these persons, we just need to return true or false whether we want to cover it or not. This find function is going to return the first matched person based on this condition. So condition is going to return true or false. So we want to return either true or false, but based on what condition? Based on a condition that this person should have ID equals to my person ID. Oh, sorry. My person ID. Okay. So if this condition is true, true will be returned. And when true will be returned, it will give us that person. So let us save that person somewhere, a single person. Now let us save it in our scope. So inside my scope, I have one object person where I receive a singular person from my entire array. Based on a condition, if person ID is matching this URL person ID. Okay. Well, so that's what we need, because once we have that person in our scope, okay, once we have a person in our scope like this one, then we can use this person to fetch all the details in our details view. So inside our details view now, at this place, we can reload all these things, or we can have all these things from the person, just like this one. So now in a details page, I can have my name, person name from this person's, person title, person first name, person last name, then let us load all those things here. This should be person email. This should be person phone 1. Then this should be person phone 2. Okay. Then inside other details, address. So this should be person address line 1. Now I'm going to copy this part because we are going to have multiple things inside address. Oh, not there entirely, just here. Line 1, then this should be line 2. Okay, then this should be city. Then we need to have state. Everything is coming from that object now. So very simple one. I don't know whether it is zip or what. Let's have zip. We'll find it out. And then the country. Okay. So, and here this should be note. Okay. So we have everything now. Let's revise the entire flow. From home, on a person name, we have a link which redirects us to the detail view with one parameter, which is ID. So inside our config part, we have a routing for that details view with ID as a parameter. So we can access this ID parameter in our controller using route params. So route params and ID, I'll have that ID. Now based on this ID, I want to find a person from my entire array. So I'll make use of JavaScript find function. And I'll have that person at this place, right? Now once we have that person inside our scope, then we can access all the data from that person object inside our view. So let's save and let us have a look at the result now. So let's go to the root. Now if I click on this person now, Dory, then it will fetch the details of that person, Dory. Okay. If I go to home and if I click on this Dare, then it will fetch the details of Dare now. Why? Because if you focus here on the URL, it's contact details slash, after slash we have the person ID, right? So we are working with ID right now. 15. If I go back and click on this one, then it's ID 1, and the same person details we can fetch at this place, right? So that's how we can work. We can pass any parameter inside the URL, and we can fetch that parameter in controller. Based on that parameter, you can work on your task. Whatever you want to fetch, you can and do your thing. So actually what happens is inside our controller, once we have this person ID, instead of writing this line, what we do is we fetch that person detail from the database. So to fetch that detail, you need to call one API at this place. On line number 45, you need to call an API which will fetch your data from the database and return to you. Right now, we do not have any kind of server-side coding and APIs. We are working locally here. Okay. So any doubt or confusion at this place in this entire scenario? How do we fetch a single person detail based on our selection? Any query or doubt here? Just waiting for your response in a chat box. Okay. Well, so that's what the details part is. Now, if we focus on the result, we have done multiple things. We are working with different views, detailing part also. Now, two things are remaining: edit and delete. You have those two buttons at this place, and you have those two buttons at this place also. Yellow button is the edit, and red is the delete. That's what remains. So now we'll work on the edit part, and at the end we'll work on the delete part. Now, once we are done with those two things, we are done with the entire web app that we are working right now. So first of all, we need to create a view for this edit. If I click here, then I should be redirected to a view where I'll have this entire form, and inside that form I already want to have those details filled because I'm going to edit that person. So existing values should be fetched and displayed here so that later on I can edit that thing and I can update or discard, right? So that's what we want to do. So we want to have a new view which will have a same structure like this one. So let's create a new view file inside our view folder. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file, and let's call it edit contact HTML. Okay, and it's gonna have the same structure like add contact, right? So what I'll do is I'll copy this entire code, and we'll have that thing inside. Oh, no. Just a minute. Well, I don't want this thing. Yeah, where do I have edit file? Yeah, here. So I'll paste that entire code at this one, and this is gonna be update now. Okay, this is gonna be the update form. So let us change the title of this entire form also. Instead of add person detail, we call it edit person details, and save it. Right? So we have this thing. Now we already have our entire form at this place. We call it new person form. Now instead of that, let us call edit person form. Edit person form. Now if I change that form name, okay, then I need to change it in my entire code. So wherever I was having new person form, I'm going to update that thing inside my entire page. Okay, so I'm selecting all those multiple things at once, and then I replace it with edit person form. That's the one change I've done. Second change, instead of add person, I will have a function name update person. So that will be created inside the controller. Fine. Okay, and one more thing, inside our entire form, all the inputs are having ng model. So we have binded that thing with with one object inside the controller, and we call it new person. Instead of that new person, let us call a simple person. We are going to have a simple person. So need to change that everywhere. Instead of new person, wherever I am having new person, I'm going to select that thing multiple places, right? And replace it with simple person. Just let me verify. Yeah. Okay. So I believe this should work now. So we have changed we have made few changes inside our view file HTML code. First change, form name. Second change, method name. Third change, whatever object we were having, instead of new person, it is simple person. So now let us load this view based on the URL. And when I say that I want to load this view for a particular person, then I need to pass that person ID as a parameter also. So just like we have done everything in this one, details controller, we have a route parameter. Same thing we are going to do inside our edit controller. Okay, so let me get rid of unnecessary files right now, because we don't want to have multiple files loaded at this place. Yeah, so we can see this. Let's create a new route at this place, and that is going to be, instead of this is going to be the edit contact with ID. It will be edit contact.html file, and the controller is going to be edit controller. Okay, so we have that route set up. Now let us create this controller, edit controller, in the controller file. So this is gonna be edit controller, where I'll have scope, root scope, and route params, because from route params I can have ID. Once I have ID, I'm going to fetch that person data, and I'm going to keep it in person object, so that once I have that person object, I can access all those person data, like person title, then the person first name, person last name, and so on. Okay, so that part we have already written here, and we have the controller. Now let us just have the inside our details page, where we have edit button. This edit button, let us redirect our user to that route. So instead of button, I'm going to have anchor with href, and that's gonna be something like, you already know, just like this one. Okay, so in the details page, that's gonna be the edit contact route, and then we need to have a person ID here. Okay, I'm going to pass person ID like this way. So inside our details page, we have edit, and if I click on this edit, I'll be redirected to edit contact with person ID. Based on this person ID, that person data will be fetched. So let me save this code, and let us have a look at that part now. So if I go and edit this 15 ID 15 person there, so first one, I am at a details page. Now I want to edit this thing, so I'll click on edit, and it will redirect me to the edit contact page with ID 15. And if it is ID 15, then I do have all those data available to me right now. Okay, so if I go to home page and go to edit some other person, Dory, then I'll have data of Dory here. Okay, and so on. If we go for this one, edit, we'll have that person data available at this place. Now once this is enabled already, because everything is filled, and we are done with edit part also. Daryl 4444. Now, as long as this has been already binded with your data, if I click on update, it has been updated without clicking this thing, Dairy 4444, because we have binded that thing in the AngularJS, right? So it is being updated already. Now, what you need to do when you click on update part, when you click on this update, is you just need to redirect your user. And actually, if you want to update this data on your database, then you need to call API when you have your database. At that part, you should call that API to update this data inside the database. So that thing we will do inside our update function. We will redirect our user to home page. And inside our discard, we already have a home routing setup. So we'll stop here. We have worked on the details controller today, and we have edit routing part. Edit part is already done, but we'll work on these two buttons. And in the next lecture, we will also work on the delete button. And we will work on this tabular form because we haven't binded anything in that table, and edit button and delete button. So in our second lecture today, what we'll do is we'll go for all those small touching part, and we'll make sure that entire app is working properly, completely. And that will be the end of this entire unit also. Okay, so any query or question till now in today's session right now that we have seen? Just let me verify your attendance once. Yeah, okay. Okay, Dhruv is asking, whenever user click the link, page should be open in new tab rather than some same window. Is there any command for this? Look, Dhruv, if you want to open that page in a new tab, then you don't go for Angular routing. You simply have the anchor tag and set up a target new. Now, why do we go for Angular and a single page application? Is because we do not want to refresh our entire page, and we want to refresh the portion of our page, a content, only some content of our page. That's why we do this entire exercise. Okay, now if you simply go for the new page, this Angular any point of time and set our new window. Okay, yeah, any more queries? Yeah, thank you. And then thank you, everyone. So let's conclude this session at this point right now. And we'll see you again in the next lecture. Thank you. Bye-bye.